There's lease administration, transactions, facilities, and construction all have to really, they're interdependent, they're married, right?
Yeah.
And so if we are on this aggressive growth strategy where we're going to be opening a bunch of locations, you can't just have a real estate transaction team. You have to have a functioning lease administration. You have to have functioning construction and facilities. So while I was brought on initially with the, hey, help us deal with this broker thing that we need to deal with, it evolved very quickly.
Welcome to our Industrial Advisors podcast. We're live at IAMC. Bill Condon and Matt McGregor. Our guest today is Deb Szima, who is MBA and VP Real Estate Construction and Facilities at SRS.
That's a whole long title.
It is, yeah. A lot to that. Yeah,
Yes.
So impressive. Yeah. Welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
How's IAMC going so far?
It's good.
Yeah.
It's good.
How many IAMC conferences have you done?
I don't remember the count, but I started coming in 2020. Is that the Dallas Fort Worth IMC?
I think so,
That's
yeah.
about right.
2020 or
Yeah.
2021
Yeah.
was my first.
Awesome.
That was the
It's changed a lot.
COVID comeback one. Yes.
I'd say that I've noticed a big shift in the mix here
There's no
in the
question.
last 4 to 5 years.
I agree. It's a dramatic change.
A lot of younger people.
Yes.
And
Yes. Yeah. Way more diversity.
next gen.
That's
they're
right.
calling us.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, when I heard that, I think if you were 45 or under, you were the emerging leaders. I was like, wow, never thought being 43 would make me the noob.
Yeah. Hey, two of the three of us at this table could be part of that grill.
I'm out of that club.
I'm not telling you.
I think I'm still young generation SRR though.
Yeah, you are. You're like the youngest guy at part of that
Exactly.
organization.
That's right. Yes. SRR goes to 60 for new gen. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, wow. Basically, if you're not dead.
Exactly. That's right. So, well, first of all, tell us a little bit about the company so the listeners have a background.
Sure.
What do you guys do and what's your competitive advantage?
Sure. So SRS Distribution is a building products distribution company. They have also they've grown really rapidly through acquisitions. They've acquired a landscape supply company and a pool supply company called Heritage Family of Companies. And I don't know if I'm cutting ahead. As you know, Home Depot acquired us in June of 2024 for a record-breaking $18.25 billion.
That's a lot of money.
Which was a really great accomplishment for the organization.
Did you broker that deal?
I wish. No, I can't take credit for that. And company itself was bought out of bankruptcy, and a roofing company bought out of bankruptcy in Florida about 16 years ago. So it was a very, very aggressive growth strategy through acquisition. So it was a very disaggregated industry. I don't think it's quite as disaggregated anymore. There's not a lot of big players to scoop up, but went through and acquired a lot of the regional players and built it into this behemoth. So really incredible M&A story.
Yes.
And then, of course, you get to a certain point where you can't only grow through acquisitions. You also have to grow through organic real estate growth acquisitions. And, because the company had grown so rapidly through acquisitions, a lot of the core corporate real estate function was completely disaggregated and handled by the field organization. So when I was hired on in the middle of 2021, I don't think that the leadership had an entire idea of what they were bringing me in for, but the brokers that they were using at the time nationally were like, hey, you really have to have a director of real estate. This is becoming too much for us to handle. And so they did bring me in and very quickly realized that we really just needed to build out a functioning, professionalized, centralized corporate real estate function, which is going to be inclusive of the entire ecosystem, right? There's lease administration, transactions, facilities, and construction all have to really, they're interdependent, they're married, right?
Yeah.
And so if we are on this aggressive growth strategy where we're going to be opening a bunch of locations, you can't just have a real estate transaction team. You have to have a functioning lease administration. You have to have functioning construction and facilities. So while I was brought on initially with the, hey, help us deal with this broker thing that we need to deal with, it evolved very quickly.
Yeah, I'm sure. And I can imagine, to complicate things even further as you guys are, getting bigger and acquiring, it just makes the whole process throughout real estate even more to it, I guess I should say.
I think you guys probably, obviously you're having a lot of conversations and have a lot of insight on this, but it also was just very timely. If you think about what was happening in industrial at the time that I came into SRS.
Yeah.
With the transition, I also had to educate the organization on why their rents were going up so much and why it wasn't a function of starting a real estate team. It was the byproduct of what was happening in the industry.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that I'm joining at the same time, right? The whole cause and effect thing. I'm not causing it, but it's a good thing that, me and other real estate professionals are coming in to help navigate it. So there were some challenges there that we had to navigate. But, from what I saw, and we're primarily industrial outside storage. So I didn't even mention that when I introduced SRS Distribution. We do have some moderate sized boxes. I wouldn't necessarily call them big box in the scope of industrial, not mega sites, but like 100,000. We have some of those, but it's primarily 30 to 50,000 square foot. A lot of outside acreage coverage where we need to store shingle pallets, et cetera, outdoors, or landscaping materials or rock stone, that kind of thing. So the outside storage component has always been important for our business. Well, post-COVID, you have an influx of institutional investors that need to mix up their portfolios. They were all heavily in office or maybe retail, and office and retail are struggling in COVID. And now all of a sudden they're like, hey, the returns on these standalone industrial outside storage sites are credible.
Yeah.
And then so I personally saw it because I was just inundated with people reaching out interested in these sites.
Yeah.
And of course, the byproduct of that, skyrocketing rents, the other byproduct of having these professional institutional landlords that are interested in your product, you don't have these handshake deals anymore.
Yeah,
right? They're
that's
not
right.
These little 4-page leases. They're moving to 30, 40, 60. We have an 80-page lease. I mean, you start getting into the kinds of leases that I was seeing in retail. You also have people who are going to take care of their asset. So they're going to have an expectation around how we as a business are maintaining that asset. They're going to be paying attention to it. So you're going to get slapped a lot more for how you're operating. So all of those things were impacted, by that shift. And then add on the complications with the skyrocketing interest rates in those years.
Yeah.
iOS is running out. We're not finding as much iOS. It's too expensive to build.
It's running out because also all the competition coming on to grab it?
Well, if you think about the influx of the investors into industrial, they're going to want max coverage on that site, right? So they're going to go, okay, I have this
We're gonna build
several acres, whatever. I'm going to build out a Class A tilt wall, or I'm going to, even if they're going to do a metal masonry building, they're going to try to maximize coverage. We also saw, when they're not doing that, now we're starting to see a premium on the outside storage, like where in the past you would pay for the per square foot, and they may or may not factor some sort of premium for the outside storage into that per square foot. Now you have your per square foot on the building, and we're starting to see a lot more commonly them asking for a premium per acre.
Yeah.
So
yeah, because all that institutional,
very regionalized, but it's really starting to spread, and we're starting to see that pattern, which makes the real estate a lot more expensive. And when you go from having a really high margin business, because real estate was sub 2% of your
overall cost.
Now, I heard, I think Kevin the other day said, oh, we like to keep our real estate cost. I think he said like between 5 and 8% of our cost. Yeah, that would cause some squawking.
Yeah.
I think, because that's just it. We haven't gotten there as a business. And so we try to keep it as low as possible because we're a distributor too. We're not the manufacturer. So trying to protect that margin.
So back up a little bit because for the listener, I didn't miss this. You came in as a new employee to develop a corporate real estate strategy, which is not easy as an existing employee, but you came in with all these new ideas. How did that go? And tell us a little bit about how you sold it internally, how you built it out from what it was.
Sure. I'd say I had my successes and I had my failures.
Sure. Absolutely.
But the single most important thing was upfront, kind of getting aligned with the executive team. And I was reporting to the CFO when I came in, and he knew that we had this idea of a liquidity event in the horizon. They were building towards liquidity event, right? So we need to professionalize it. We need to have a portfolio that we can report on, et cetera. So it was really about tackling the biggest holes in the boat first, right? I couldn't solve everything. And so the biggest concern when I walked in was around how to manage the brokers and how to get the deals done. And so that was the focus at first. It was just, there was some disruption in their national master service agreement that they had with a broker. So my first job, RFP, get a broker structure in place that could support 400 people in the field,
Yeah.
right? Because I still didn't have a team. It was me. I'm not going to be able to take over what 400 or 500 people are doing.
Right.
So it was, hey, we're going to pick and choose our battles. And the first battle was going to be, you guys need to stop hiring like 3 brokers to look for something in a market for you. We're going to leverage a national service provider.
Yes.
Leverage a well-managed relationship who, their performance is based on how happy we are with them. They're not going to be motivated to drive up your rent. I had to overcome that concern and objection quite a bit with brokers. Like, well, the brokers benefit off of the rent being higher.
Kind of.
In order to maintain our national relationship, there's a host of other metrics, right? And performance metrics that they have to meet. Satisfying the customer in the field being the primary non-metric metric.
Yeah.
So, obviously I can look at a deal and say, that's not really market. I think you're driving. They've never done that. Why would they?
Right.
Not saying that, the local co-brokers have to be kind of reined in on occasion, but the national team was aligned sort of with what we were trying to accomplish.
Did you have a template coming in that you had done somewhere else, would be my first part of it, and then often you're coming into a culture that you don't quite understand, and they definitely are challenged by you. So how was that?
Well, I came in slow.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
That was good.
I came in, the CFO that I had a relationship with, I reported to him for a while, even made a comment joking at one point, like, I was a little worried at first because you weren't like really jumping into things, but it's a very unique culture, a very unique environment. It was similar somewhat to where I'd been at Deltile Mohawk previously, where the regional operations leaders still were driving a lot of, the strategy on keeping, growing, relocating, et cetera. It wasn't a top-down strategy like in retail. So there were some similarities there, but it was a very unique culture. And I just kind of tiptoed into it and offered help when I was asked at first, but kind of sat back and observed, asked a lot of questions, talked to a lot of people, tried to start building relationships with the leaders, finding out what their pain points are, trying to get some kind of reportable data in place on the basics, right? We're not even talking on the portfolio yet. We're talking about getting my arms around what everybody's doing across the country because everybody's kind of running their own searches. So just getting a report where I can say, these are all of the deals that are in flight, right? Something that basic. And of course, the big one was just getting some third-party resources. That was my focus at first. Third-party broker that we can lean into, evaluate what was happening on the lease administration side, brought in third-party legal counsel to support because we didn't have any in-house real estate transaction counsel. It was general counsel, and he had a lot on his plate because he was doing all the transactions or all of the acquisitions as well. So that was step one. So the other thing that I dealt with quite a bit on the front end was around this growing concern around fire suppression, and codes were changing and getting a little bit more stringent. And I was the first to say this technically isn't really my specialty, right? I know enough to be dangerous. I know enough to manage project managers, manage construction team. So I really needed to find a partner. I needed to find somebody who knew the technical piece. And so one of the first hires I made was a director, actually he wasn't a director when I hired him, was a construction manager to come in and partner with me. And one thing every person that I hired on this team, because by the end, there's about 20 of us.
Wow.
So I went from me to somewhere in the ballpark of 20 this year. And every single person that I hired in, it's like, hey guys, we are retrofitting this jet. It's in the air, can't lose momentum, can't lose altitude. And that takes a different level of expertise. If you have a blueprint and you're on the ground and you're in a hangar, you can take your time, you can follow the steps, you can get advice. It's a lot more challenging, I think, when you've already got this thing flying and everybody thinks it's doing just fine, right? And you're tasked with essentially retrofitting that jet engine, right? You have to find really good lease admin talent, which is really hard to find.
For sure.
And not something that's very sexy and not something that people generally value in real estate organizations or in organizations in general. But what happens when rent doesn't get paid? That falls apart. So I liken it to, I had a boat with a lot of holes and it was like, what's the biggest hole today?
Yeah.
And you want to be strategic about it, but you also have to be reactive to the organization, what's important to them.
Yeah. So, that's a lot. I mean, that is a lot to
it's a lot.
in over a 4-year
I just lived
period.
like 20 years in 4 years, guys. We always joke about SRS is like living in dog years.
Yeah, you did like 10 years of work in 4 years, or whatever it was. But that's really impressive, like going through that entire process and and managing all of that, and then hiring 20 people.
Yeah, there were definitely some learnings and takeaways that I have for next time. It's like, okay, there's going to be some non-negotiables going in that I'm going to be a little bit more clear on, right? To set the team up for success. Like resources was just a constant roller coaster. It was, as soon as we got a couple steps forward, we take steps back, and all that did was risk losing trust in the team and what they were able to execute against. Because if you don't have the resources to do it right, you're not really set up for success.
Yeah.
That's probably the most challenging thing, I think, probably for anybody centralizing a real estate department. And I've heard it even with these departments that have been around for a while and they just have really small teams. That's the biggest challenge, is getting enough people to do it right.
Having that resource allocation to be able to go do it the way you
And
want
the
to do it.
mix, Kevin Fulhoff, he was talking about that in one of his opening presentations. It's, the constant juggle of like, how much is enough? How much do we need to outsource? How much do we need in-house? And there were times where I went back and forth. Like, we had lease administration completely outsourced. We brought it hybrid in-house. That wasn't working. We brought it fully in-house. Now we're looking at a hybrid version again. And so it's a constant tweaking of sort of the organizational structure to figure out what works for that unique organization.
Yeah.
Good. Well, it's a pleasure having you on the show.
Thank you.
I look forward to following your career and next steps for you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being on the show. Enjoy.
Thanks for having me.
Sacramento.
Thank you.
Thank you.